What happens in the Arctic no longer stays in the Arctic. Right now, changes are unfolding at the top of the world that would have sounded impossible just a generation ago. Ice that once felt permanent is disappearing. Temperatures are rising faster here than anywhere else on Earth. And as the climate transforms the region, something else is changing too: power. The Arctic is no longer just a frozen wilderness. It is becoming a strategic prize, a place where global rivals see opportunity, advantage, and leverage. Military planners, energy companies, and political leaders are all looking north, asking the same question: who will control what emerges from the ice? The reason is simple. The Arctic sits at the intersection of climate change and geopolitics. As the ice melts, new sea routes appear, untapped resources become reachable, and the balance of global power quietly begins to shift. To understand why the Arctic has become so contested, we need to stop imagining it as empty space. 8 countries actually have territory inside the Arctic Circle: the United States through Alaska, Canada, Greenland, which is part of Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia, the largest Arctic power of them all. During the Cold War, this region mattered for one terrifying reason. It was the shortest path for nuclear missiles between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both sides built bases, radar systems, and airfields. The U.S. established a major military presence in northern Greenland, a location that still matters today. But when the Cold War began to thaw, so did tensions in the Arctic. In the late 1980s, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev called for reducing military activity in the region. His vision was simple. Instead of rivalry, the Arctic could be a zone of cooperation. Science, environmental protection, and shared interests would replace confrontation. That idea shaped the next few decades. The Arctic Council was created. The 8 Arctic nations agreed to work together. Even countries far from the polar circle, like China, India, and South Korea, opened research stations to study how Arctic ice affects global weather patterns. For years, the Arctic was described as an exception in global politics, a rare place where cooperation survived even when tensions rose elsewhere. But that story didn't survive Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In 2022, the war shattered the illusion of a peaceful Arctic. Long dormant fault lines reopened almost overnight. Finland and Sweden, once neutral, moved to join NATO. Suddenly, the Arctic map changed. On one side stood Russia. On the other, a growing NATO presence. Borders that once felt symbolic became strategic front lines. The boundary between Norway, Finland, and Russia is now one of the most sensitive military zones in the world. The Arctic even saw direct spillover from the war when Ukrainian drones targeted a Russian airbase inside the Arctic Circle. For Moscow, the region is vital. Much of Russia's nuclear deterrent is based there. Submarines, missile systems, and strategic bombers all rely on Arctic infrastructure. Russia has reopened dozens of Soviet-era bases and used Arctic waters to test advanced hypersonic weapons. Encounters in the sky have become more frequent too. Russian and American fighter jets now operate dangerously close to each other near Alaska, raising the risk of miscalculation. The West has responded in kind. NATO has expanded its Arctic exercises to their largest scale since the Cold War. The U.S. Army has reactivated specialized Arctic units in Alaska, training soldiers for extreme cold warfare. And then there is Greenland. Former President Donald Trump shocked the world when he openly suggested that the United States should acquire Greenland. His reasoning was blunt: national security. The U.S. already operates a military base there, and Greenland's location offers unmatched strategic reach across the Arctic and the North Atlantic. But the reaction was just as clear. Most Greenlanders don't want to be American. Many want full independence instead. Still, the episode revealed something important. Greenland is no longer viewed as remote or irrelevant. It is central to future power calculations. That urgency is driven partly by a growing partnership between Russia and China. The two countries describe their relationship as having no limits. In the Arctic, that cooperation is becoming visible. Coast Guard patrols, shared military exercises, bombers flying together near U.S. airspace. This kind of coordination was once unthinkable. Now it's real and risky. Military analysts worry that increased drills and patrols could spark an accidental escalation in an already tense region. China insists its actions are peaceful and focused on cooperation, but Beijing's ambitions are clear. Despite being over 1,000 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, China calls itself a near-Arctic state. In 2018, it launched the Polar Silk Road, aiming to invest in shipping lanes, infrastructure, and resource projects. Not all Arctic communities are comfortable with that. Many want economic partnerships, but not dependence. China's biggest successes so far have come through Russia, particularly in large natural gas projects made more accessible by melting ice. And that melting ice may be the most powerful force of all. Since 1979, summer Arctic sea ice has shrunk dramatically. An area roughly the size of Argentina has vanished. This has sparked hopes for new shipping routes that could cut thousands of miles off global trade journeys. Of the 3 possible Arctic routes, only one is currently viable: the Northern Sea Route along Russia's coast. In 2024, fewer than 100 cargo ships used it, mostly transporting goods between Russia and China. That number is tiny compared to the Suez Canal, which handles over 13,000 ships every year. The Arctic remains frozen most of the year. Even in summer, conditions are unpredictable. Narrow windows and extreme risk make it unattractive for most global shipping companies. But shipping isn't the real prize. Beneath the ice lies something far more tempting. The Arctic is believed to contain around 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas and 13% of undiscovered oil. Add to that critical minerals, especially in Greenland, and the stakes rise even higher. Access to these resources could reduce dependence on foreign suppliers, particularly China, which dominates the rare earth market. But extraction is brutally difficult. The environment is remote, expensive, underdeveloped, and short on skilled labor. Despite all these challenges, interest in the Arctic keeps growing. As the ice retreats, competition advances. What was once described as high north, low tension is now something very different. The Arctic has entered an era of high north, high tension. And what happens there may shape the future of global power far beyond the ice.